had the last couple of weeks where really kind of cruised in the first two sets, got pushed towards the end of the third, and did a good job closing it out. And then Wake Forest on Sunday we played very, very poorly and won the match. So not very often you get to win and learn. A lot of times you win or learn. And, we knew Wake Forest would kind of challenge us with, tipping a lot and kind of putting balls in the middle of our court. And we just didn't respond to that very well in the second set, and they won that. And then we were starting to feel some pressure in the third. I think we were down maybe 8-3, and really righted the ship. I thought, Chloe Chacoin really stuck out to me as a leader who stepped up, and she just played fantastic through the whole weekend, and was a big reason we were able to get out of Wake Forest in 4. Kind of an interesting trip. I think we lost NC State in 2023 at their place, and then we went 5 with Wake last year. We've just always struggled with that trip, so really fortunate and excited to get 2 wins. And then, as Nancy said, we are looking at Miami on one of our first Thursday, maybe our only Thursday matches of the week. Florida State on Thursday, and then Miami on Sunday. Florida State, it's very interesting. The head coach of Wake Forest was a longtime assistant at Florida State, and I thought that Wake Forest attacked us very similar to how Florida State most likely will. They always run a really good offense. So very good opportunity to correct some things we saw on Sunday, because I think we're going to see a lot of similar things on Thursday.
Let me ask you a big picture question. Where you've got, I think, 6 matches left before the tournament. Where do you think you stand? Are you pleased with the progress? And where would you like to see improvement the rest of the way?
So big picture-wise, I think we have about 6 matches left. You said pleased. Like, I think we're a program, easy to please, hard to satisfy. So it's like we're pleased with a lot of the progress, especially offensively, going from the 6-2 to the 5-1. I think that was a big question mark of how that would look. And I think right now we're hitting maybe 290 in conference, which is really good for in-conference play. If you're around 300, I mean, that's really, really spectacular. So I think we're pretty pleased with what we've seen offensively, and then we've kind of stuck with our identity defensively, and we're still kind of right where we've been past years. So again, pretty pleased with the progress we've seen. A big credit to Naelis Cabello. I think does a great job offensively of kind of getting everybody involved. We've got, you'll see some teams, Sunday in particular, Miami has a player that, they'll set sometimes 80, 90 times. We've never really structured our roster that way, and we've had a lot of success kind of using everybody, and I think we're doing a good job getting a lot of contributions from a lot of different people.
You mentioned your defensive identity. How would you describe that?
We talk about just relentless defense, tenacious defense. That's almost an ode to like the '90s, whoever that NBA announcer was. Tenacious defense. But the interesting thing this year is we've traditionally been a great blocking team. We've led the country in blocking multiple seasons. We just feel really confident about the way that we block and the way we have a presence at the net. The interesting thing this year, and I think the thing that's really fun about watching us this year, is we're the best defensive backcourt team that I've ever been around, maybe in my entire career, for sure, at Louisville. We lead the conference right now in digging, which is a lot of times rare if you're hitting for a high percentage. Not to get too much in the weeds, but in volleyball, the more digs that you're getting, the longer the rallies are. Well, the longer the rallies are, sometimes you're not killing the ball. It's not really good to have a lot of digs sometimes. For us to be able to hit close to 300 in conference, but also lead the conference in digging, is kind of an anomaly statistically. So I love what we do with our backcourt defense. The big part of that is, our 2 outsides who've been starting, Chloe Chacoin and Peyton Peterson, they could probably be liberos for us as well. So we kind of feel like we have 3 liberos on the court. We just, 2 of them happen to hit.
Dan, as a program, you guys have had great success developing players and kind of bringing them along. Maybe you got some freshmen who don't play a lot, and then they keep getting better and playing more and more. Is that something in volleyball now that is a concern to keep players? Is it possible there's going to be as much movement as there has been in some of the other sports?
It's not a concern here. I think, we always say recruiting-wise, it's like when players don't, choose not to come here, we're like, well, they might not have been any good here, because we're pretty authentic with what this experience is going to be. You have to have a long-term view, and we have shirts that say "us always" on the back, and the motto there is sometimes me, sometimes you, but us always. So it's not always going to be your time to lead the program in attempts or kills or whatever it is, but you got to work towards when that time is coming. A couple of freshmen that stick out, Chloe Meester has been redshirting for us, but most times when I talk to coaches, they're like, who's that kid warming up? And I will point out, I'd be like, but don't miss warm-ups. You want to see some of these future superstars that we're creating. Addison McCoon hasn't played a ton. She's our third middle, but she's gotten some experience, and sometimes you'll catch in matches that, like, Kara Cressy is basically a pro amongst, college players, and she'll do something, and we'll go to Addison and be like, Addison, did you see what she just did there? Like, you're going to be doing that in a year, and we're always building towards the future while still trying to attack winning now, and that's what the foundation of this program is. That's what it'll continue to be, and we feel really confident about it.
How did Miami beat Pitt? And so how can we beat Miami?
That's a great question. So very, very different game plans. So, we've had some marquee wins, and we've come up short with a couple big-time teams as well. But we've always been very, very spread out with our offense. Now, Miami, they took a different approach. So, at Pitt, they set their one superstar, 90 times, and Miami set theirs 90 times, and Miami won that battle. Our team is not designed that way. So we are going to have a great defensive game plan against their super stud on the left side. And then we've talked about all year just dominating first contact. And I think in those matches where we weren't able to get over the hump against those top teams, it wasn't for lack of, being able to kill the ball in certain moments. It was, the basics just kind of failing us at the wrong time. We have to be good for a long period of time. So we know that recipe works. So I do think in attacking Miami, it will be a different game than they had against Pitt because we're designed different ways, and that's what I think makes volleyball fun. So we're going to have to have a great defensive game plan against their superstar, and then we're going to have to be fantastic in first contact, which has served us really well this year.
Get back to the tournament a little bit. Do you feel like you're in contention for a number one seed, or where do you think the seeding stands?
I've always thought the ACC, especially in 2020 when the ACC really kind of pivoted, and us and Pitt and Georgia Tech at the time, and we had all these teams in the top 15, top 10. I've always thought if you win the conference that you would get a top 4 seed, and we haven't had a conference winner with the exception of Florida State when they shared the conference title a few years ago that hasn't gotten that top seed. So for us, we still have an opportunity. We're sitting in second with 2 losses. Stanford and Pitt both have 1. They play each other this weekend, and then we play both of those teams at the end of the year. So, from a technical standpoint, we do control our own destiny within the conference. And again, I've always felt if you win the ACC outright, you should get that top 4 seed. So for us, we're trying to win the conference, and then I think the chips will fall where they may. And I think the committee's done a really good job in recent past of how the seeds have gone and all of that. And we're trying to take care of one match at a time in our conference. We feel really fortunate to be able to play in such a competitive conference.
Talk about Florida State a little bit and what they bring, and they've just been consistently good throughout the years, and they're right behind that first tier, and I know they're super hungry. So
yeah, so. Well, a big credit to Florida State for working with us with the Friday football game. This is the first Thursday-Sunday conference matches I think I've ever been a part of. So their coach, Chris Poole, has been there for a long time. I've talked about this in past press conferences about he is basically the creator of our conference schedule. So our conference schedule, it's unbalanced, and then the last 4 matches of the year are RPI-based, and he's a big reason that the ACC, volleyball-wise, is where it's at because we've gotten so many teams in the conference or in the NCAA tournament because of Chris Poole's idea for how we do our conference schedule. So I was really thankful to them for working with us to get this Thursday match. But as far as what they do, I think offensively we're going to see some things that we saw against Wake Forest, which worked against us. So it's nice we have a couple days to prep and learn from what happened against Wake Forest with their head coach formerly working at Florida State. But they're just always a great offensive team. They've got a really, really good left side who's carried them in some matches. And they're just a team that doesn't go away. They're typically very physical at the net, and they're a really, really tough team. So it's going to be a great Thursday night match.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Go Cubs.